You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. Welcome to Volatility Views, the premier program for volatility traders. Each week, we'll take a deep dive into the world of volatility with in-depth analysis, trading activity reviews, strategy breakdowns, cutting-edge education, and much more. We'll also bring you exclusive conversations with the traders, researchers, and asset managers who are reshaping the volatility landscape. If it involves volatility, then you'll find it on Volatility Views. And now, it's time to take a deep dive into the world of volatility. It's time for Volatility Views.
All right, everybody. That music means we are back. No holiday this week. We're back at our same bat time. Same bat channel here to talk a little bit of vol. Yes, it is time once again for Volatility Views, the premier program for volatility traders. My name, of course, Mark Longo from the optionsinsider.com, as well as from the network upon which all you folks are mainlining these days. I know we were off last week, but you know what? You still got your volatility taste, your volatility morsel out there. A little bit of a cut together fun discussion about what the heck is killing vol, and a lot of people weighing in to do it. So if you missed any of those segments on the other shows, we cut them all together for you. A little bit of a volatility whodunit, if you will. Kind of fun content for a closed market holiday. But now we're back. We're ready. We're raring to go. Happy I'm out of New York. Hopefully all you folks in New York are staying safe. I missed that earthquake, that once-in-a-century earthquake by about 48 hours. So that would have been certainly something, walking down Manhattan when the streets start shaking. So hopefully all you folks back here, hopefully our buddy the Flow Master, I'll have to reach out to him, see how he's doing over there in CBOE East today. Of course, if you like what you hear, this show, anything else that we do, throw a like, a star, a comment, a rating, a review, all that stuff in aggregate. If you haven't signed up for our YouTube, by all means, check it out. A lot more people consuming the show that way as well. You can still listen to it via YouTube. People forget about that, but a lot of you like to go that route. Of course, if you want to go above and beyond, you want to get your name in the hat for the Pro Trading Crate, then by all means, head on over to theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go. We have to give away the March Pro Trading Crate. Let's see if we can get all of our ducks in a row. Maybe, we'll see. Maybe we can get that done today, listeners, as we go around the horn and see who's joining us on the old program today. First, let's go out to the Southern Volatility Mecca, where we are joined once again by the greasiest of meatballs, Mr. Mark Sebastian from OptionPit.com. Mr. Meatball, welcome back to the show. And how go things for your compatriot on the shores of Maine? Has he recovered his power, sir?
Well, he's on a generator now, but no, he has not recovered his power.
I'm betting you missed all that fun, huh?
Oh, yeah. Nothing like a windstorm in April to brighten up your spring.
It's like he had a lot of snow, too. It wasn't just wind. It looked like
snow. He's got trees falling all over his property. He is on a positive note. He's going to get all the chainsaw time that he could ever hope for.
There you go. Looking on the bright side, the man loves his woodworking. He will get some chainsaw time. As we go around the horn, another man who loves himself some chainsaw time, none other than the once future and now present Mr. Dr. VIX, doing a rare bit of double duty, jumping from TWIFO to Vol Views. Our good buddy, Mr. Russell Rhoads, holding court over there at the KELLEY School of Business. Mr. Rhoads, welcome back to the show to you as well.
As always, very happy to be here. I'm back in the Chicago area. I did the overnight drive home from school, and so it might seem the same to you guys, but it's exactly it's totally different for me. Different time zone, different spot. Able to call in my jammies. It's awesome.
That's why we're not a video show, listeners.
That's exactly why.
So Russell can call in his jammies. You know, before we get the show proper off and running, my producers have announced that they are ready. So let's dive into it right now. I'm going to fire up the random number generator. Mr. Rhodes, you haven't done this with us before. So
I have not.
I will allow you. The numbers are now flickering on my screen. When you say stop, I will stop it, and we will see which of our members has won the Pro Trading Crate for the month of March. Are you ready, sir?
I am absolutely ready. I'm even going to do a countdown for drama.
For drama. Okay, I like it.
For drama. 199. No. 3, 2, 1. Hit that button.
There we go. All right. Who did you choose, Mr. Rhodes? Looks like you chose Kyle Asplund. So there you go, Kyle. Congratulations. I think that's one of our newer names out there. Congratulations to you and to everybody who played for the month of March. Our producers will reach out to you, Kyle, with all sorts of info about what's coming your way. And the rest we will construct because each one is bespoke. You never know what you're going to get. If you want to see what some of the previous ones were, go check out our social media. It's all up there. As we keep on rolling, going into a little bit of the old volatility review.
It's time to break down the latest developments in the volatility trading world. It's time for the Volatility Review.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Volatility Review. And, you know, I go away for a few days, listeners, and you folks just break the whole market. Everything was selling off earlier this week. Vol was popping. Vol was starting to get frothy. We come into yesterday, and it seemed like the worm was turning. As we were recording the option block yesterday, listeners, seemed like all was right with the world again. The bulls were firmly in the driver's seat. S&P, as we were recording the show yesterday morning, afternoon, was up about 0.75%. NASDAQ up over 1%. And then, as we were recording TWIFO, I don't know what Russell said, but he just spooked the hell out of the entire market. Ended up, by the end of that show, S&P was off about 1%, so it had swung nearly 2% to the dark side. So a lot coming out, of course, the Fed coming out and spooking some people. And then rolling into today, obviously a big number coming out this morning in the old jobs market. And apparently, and maybe we'll get to a little bit at the start of the show because this is just starting to flummox me, but apparently we're in a good news is good news environment again. We added 303,000 jobs in March. That's more than 50% above what people were expecting. So I think to call the labor market white hot is underselling it. This is the one thing that the Fed has really been trying to come to grips with their rate increases pretty much since they started doing. This has been the main sticking point. And it is white hot. And so you'd think it would kind of continue the narrative that we saw earlier this week. Hey, we're not going to get our Fed rate cuts, going to crush things. No, we're in rally-ho mode instead, listeners. So apparently, if you missed the memo, good news is good news again. S&P up 1.25% right now, still below where we were trading pretty much yesterday. Yesterday, we were vacillating around the 52.5 level around the option block time at about 52.10, 52.11 right now. Still up 1.25 points, 1.25%, I should say, on the day. Dow up nearly a full percent up there right now, about 0.9%. And of course, our old friend, the NASDAQ, up 1.5%. Listen, let's not forget them. We always talk about small caps. Let's throw them into the mix as well. How is our old friend IWM faring today? Up about 0.75%. So, bit of a weird day where they're actually the laggard. But again, small caps going to do their own thing. As we're kicking off the show, listen, remember we were off last week we had a on-demand kind of fun show, a fun clip show, if you will, but no live show last week. So we're going back 2 weeks. And we're up almost 3 points from 2 weeks ago. about 2.9 to be precise as we kicked off the show. We were at a 1570. That's a point below the high we hit just earlier today of 16 3/4 in VIX. So if you're looking for a little bit of VIX upside, and again, we've been saying this for a while, if you got VIX upside, you gotta kind of strike while the iron's hot. Hopefully you struck this morning or yesterday afternoon, because threatening a 17 handle, haven't seen that in a little while. Right now, 1570 up nearly 3 points, 2.9 points from our last show. VVIX, for all we just said it, getting down to a 75, 76. It's like, you know what? Chances are we may not hang out here for long. And sure enough, 89 as we're kicking off the show today, up 12 points from where it was a couple of weeks ago. A lot to unpack. We'll get to the vol stuff in a second. I don't want to make it a full Fed debate show because we could do that forever. But I am just curious your thoughts on this. Apparently, good news is good news thing again. And also the fact that can we put the nail in the coffin of the rate cuts? This ain't happening. Certainly not in June. And yet we're kind of just whistling past the graveyard like it still is. Mr. Rhodes, we'll start with you as our token Fed watcher on the show here. What were your thoughts on the number this morning and the market's, shall we say, maybe somewhat shocking reactions?
Well, it's funny. I'm looking at the odds of a cut and when it's going to happen on Bloomberg, and even though we got that got a very strong employment number, those numbers haven't budged very much today. Which I find very surprising. I usually assume if we get an economic number and the stock market rallies a big time, that the next thing I'm going to do is go look at what's up with the odds of the first rate cut timing wise and how many we're going to get this year and everything. And there's not much of a difference now than there was 5 hours ago, just before we got that number. So I don't know why we're rallying, other than maybe the whole market has me completely perplexed, which makes me think that we're closer to a top than a bottom, because I just don't fully understand the behavior. But again, the implied rate cut, we're on the border between 2 and 3 in 2024 rate cuts. And in fact, the implied rate change right now, by now in December's meeting, is 0.675. So it's right between 50 basis points and 70. Well, it's a little bit closer to 75 basis points, but it's hovering right there in the middle. I believe that number was a tad higher yesterday, but not a whole lot higher. It actually was. It was actually right at 75 basis points late yesterday. So if anything, the change in the interest rate markets is saying that we've gone from 3 cuts to 2 cuts, but apparently stocks like that.
Apparently,
it's just I don't fully know what's going on, but yeah, I think it's kind of shocking that they're still betting over 50% that there's going to be a rate cut in June, which is not going to happen. The full kind of rate cut bet has basically been moved back to September. Although July, they're still 75% that there's going to be a cut in July. Yeah. I just don't see it.
No.
I think
I don't get it. I don't get it. I feel like I must be looking at things wrong, or my head injury, I'm still not fully recovered from it, so I got no clue what's going on. And when I say, it's really funny because I say that sometimes in class when I'm literally having a head injury problem, like can't remember what we're talking about, and everybody laughs at me. I'm in pain, people. That's not funny, Mark.
But I'm not laughing. I'm
not you, Mark. The other one giggled a little bit.
I'm maybe giggling a little bit, but I'm not laughing.
I'm just laughing at how mystifying this market is, that you have to label it as, you have to have a head injury to understand it, which probably makes sense. I have to have a
head injury. That's my excuse for not getting it.
I don't think you are. I'm laughing because you are not alone, sir. I have no head trauma, and I am equally mystified.
I don't get it.
If not more.
I think it's interesting that, while we've been talking, the market is up 1%, and VIX, I don't know if you're watching Volatility, Russell, but the VIX has been kind of slowly climbing all day. At one point, it was down about a point. Now it's trading back above 16. So there's definitely something screwy going on right now.
We'll get to all the vol fun. I just wanted to set the table with that list, because I know our audience. A lot of our listeners are probably looking at these numbers today and being, What the hell is going on? So I just wanted you to know you are not alone, listeners. A lot of people are mystified by this market we're in right now. Who looks at these numbers we got today? Who looks at the fact that we're up over 1,000 handles in the S since last November and says, oh, you know what we need? We need a screaming series of rate cuts to support this market. I don't think anyone says that, except maybe Powell and a few others. I don't know. We're in a weird environment, listeners. But around the horn we go. We could make it the whole Fed debate show. We won't do that. We'll have to have a separate roundtable. What the hell is wrong with the Fed? I know a lot of people have thoughts on that on all sides of the aisle out there right now. Let's go out to Mr. Meatball, though. As you alluded to, Mr. Meatball, vol kind of being wonky this week, threatening a 17 handle earlier today even. Maybe we'll get back there again if this rally fades a bit, but levels we haven't seen in a little bit. What caught your eye earlier this week as vol started popping? What were your thoughts on yesterday's kind of surprising turnaround and now today's equally surprising and baffling vol move, sir?
So, Mark, when you and I were doing Option Black, do you know how much the at the money straddle was? So this was yesterday at about, call it 1:30 Eastern time. Do you know how much the at the money straddle was?
This one of your vaunted 0-day straddles?
It was, yeah, the 0-day straddle.
At 1 o'clock. Oh, with 2 hours to go. I'm gonna say 12 handles.
That's dead on. It was $12.
Damn. It's like I've done this before or something.
We moved $100 from that from that straddle price.
You know,
and then the week out strangle, the April 12th straddle was barely over $60. Just absolutely astounding what zero DTE, you know, the ability of zero DTE. I feel like some people have learned some lessons because the options today are relative to where they've been extremely bid. As you and I are talking, the at the money straddle is about $20, which to me still seems a little too cheap given the moves that we've had. But you know, we've been watching the S&P and VIX kind of correlate since December with, you know, the S&P rallying and VIX, while not directly correlating, hitting higher highs and higher lows as we rallied, you know, and yesterday appeared to be a bit of a breakout. So I'm not fully sure what the story is, but I don't think this is the end today.
I don't think anyone knows what the story is at this point. Mr. Rhodes, do you know the story, sir? Are you in on the secret? And if so, let the rest of us in on it.
I don't think it ends well. That's really, I just don't feel like it ends well. So it's not an if in my mind, it's a when. So, and I'm usually like about 6 months ahead on these things, and I think December is when I started becoming concerned. So, I'll bet you it happens in May. How's that?
So yesterday you're talking global thermonuclear war. Today you're just talking market turnaround. I think I can deal with that a little bit better. But obviously we saw a pretty crazy week this week. Vol popping earlier on the heels of some sell-off, sparked around rate concerns, rate cut concerns, which apparently have gone the way of the dodo today. Yesterday, a very impressive, in fact, it happened as we were talking yesterday, the intraday swing in the S, and now today, as we were talking earlier, this equally surprising rally. What caught your eye on the vol side this week, sir?
Oh, as far as, well, I mean, the way that it's continued to hang a bit higher, even when we've had really strong days, is a bit discouraging. And, you know, I'll go through the weekly trades in a minute, and just about everything. First off, just the weekly trades. Usually there's one Bloomberg page when I go to look at the block trading monitor. There are a couple of days this last week that there were 2 and 3 pages of of people using weeklies and really focusing in on April 10th. Which makes me wonder if and I don't see anything really good between now and next Wednesday to get volatility driving to the upside. But you know, I do know that the habit of Iran when they strike back is they usually do it right after they have a funeral, and whoever Israel hit that they're upset about, I think his funeral's today or tomorrow. So there might be a lot of concerns going into this weekend. It might be why you see VIX a little bit elevated where you would expect it to be, based on, if you watch Iran's pattern, there's a good chance we're not going to get through the weekend without them shooting back. So that might explain the VIX activity today.
You're starting to freak me out these last 48 hours of talking to you.
It's
sir.
just,
Yesterday,
I'm getting older. I'm grumpy. I'm working my way into retirement now. I'm just going to sit on the front porch and throw rocks at cats and scream at kids. So get off my lawn.
Global thermonuclear war, as you were doing yesterday. All sorts of spooky stuff. You want to get a little scared, listeners? Tune in to the Once and Future Dr. VIX here on the old network. As we keep on rolling, let's go out. Let's see if the VIX futures are looking scared right now. I think you could definitely call them frothy. You could definitely call them perhaps interested. Attuned. I don't know if you could call them scared. I suppose that's a bit of a subjective thing. As we're coming into the start of the show, that front April future at about a 1565. So looking frothy. Also looking at the time was looking pretty much neck and neck with ye old cash, which is always fun. May was at about a 1620. That puts the April future up about 1.25 points. Again, we're going back 2 weeks now, so bear that in mind. And May up almost 0.75 point, about 0.7. Of course, if you go through the term structure, obviously with vol rallying this week, we were over a 20 handle in that much anticipated, hotly watched October cycle, almost at a 21 when we kicked off the show, a 2093. I'll have to go back and see how high it got, but spoiler alert, it probably got over a 21 earlier this week, maybe even earlier today. So intriguing stuff. By way of comparison, it was at about a 2060. So it was still frothy. So you're talking really only up about 1/3 point over the last 2 weeks, but still looking frothy, looking like a nice, healthy contango out there. Mr. Meatball, we'll start with you, sir. What's catching your eye out there in the vol surface this week?
Yeah, we went into kind of a partial backwardation yesterday with the index over the April future and in line with the May. The curve itself never really threatened to go into backwardation, but here we are, recovered basically everything from Thursday, and April is still underneath the cash, and May is sitting, eerily close to where the cash index is. The curve is relatively flat, and we have bottomed out for volatility over a week ago. So really interesting structure. And again, definitely saying we're not out of the woods here. That's what I'm looking at.
I would concur with that. I would not look at this graph, this chart, and be like, oh, we are clearly beyond concerns out here. Definitely, again, like we said, looking frothy, looking interested, perhaps piqued curiosity is how you could describe this out here. Mr. Rhodes, same question for you. What are your thoughts here on the volatility surface and how it's shaping up this week?
I feel like May is really cheap. It's about 40 cents or so over spot right now. I feel like, if you think we're going to get a volatility event in the next few weeks, that there are a lot of opportunities, and the spread between VIX and the May future, and the April future is in line. If you think it's going to happen over the short term, over the next week and a half, April makes a lot of sense. But that's an indication to me that the VIX traders are thinking VIX is going to do what it often does. More often than not, it reverts to a mean, and that's great and all. But at the same time, I see the futures looking like that. But at the same time, a big portion of the option trading that I've seen is bullish and worried about a move to the upside. So there's somewhat of a balance in there, I guess. But I'm kind of surprised that May's not more like a point and a half premium. Maybe that's because we don't have a Fed meeting that falls in there. I don't think, or a Fed meeting that's there's any questions about that falls in that time frame. I just closed my Fed calendar by accident, so I can't pull that date up. There's a May 1st meeting, but the May 1st meeting, there's a 5% chance of a cut. So that might be why it's nearly, we see a flat VIX curve, and then June, July, August are kind of a little bump up, just giving us an indication of what time frame people are worried about.
Yeah, I had the same thought, and I was looking at that April and May spread. It seemed a little tight, and you're right, May doesn't seem overly juicy if that's where you want to play. You think things are going to happen within that time frame, listeners. And perhaps May is a place where you want to play. Let's see if folks are playing out there in VIX options today in the old VIX mothership, shall we, listeners? And I think you could probably guess a day like today, big number, kind of maybe some surprising action, probably going to translate into a little bit of action on the VIX options front as well. And the answer to that is yes. Yes, it is. Over 500,000 contracts already, 563,000 contracts on the tape. That compares to an ADV of just 714, so we're already almost there. That ADV is up 9,000 contracts over the last couple of weeks. I got a feeling, unless today really quiets down in the second half, that we're going to probably eclipse that and move that ADV number substantially. In terms of what's open for size and VIX options right now, let's find out together, shall we, listeners? Cost you 182,000 contracts to break into the top 10 in VIX right now. I'll get you to the May 20s, all the way up to the May 20s. Again, if you're thinking like Russell is, maybe May is kind of a little bit cheap. Maybe you like those May 20s. I don't know. It's an intriguing strike. Number 9, 188,000 of the April 17s, getting a little bit closer to the fire. Almost got there in the cash, not just this morning, listeners. 17 handle. Crazy time. By the way, only one put to be found in our top 10 this week, and that is found at number 8, 197,000 of the April 15 puts. Oh, yeah, those puts you folks made us load up on. The April 13th, the Rock Lobster and I, back on oddities. Oh, was that a week and probably 2 weeks ago now? Those are looking great, so thanks for those, listeners. I joke, of course, but you folks were instrumental in that one. Number 7, 202,000 of the May 25s. Number 6, 212,000 of the June 35s. Now we're getting back up there. Number 5, here come my favorites, listeners. 213,000 of the AUG 47 halves. If that's too far out for you, allow me to present number 4, 221,000 of the May 47 halves. Number 3, 241,000 of the April 16 calls. A numero due in VIX options today, listeners. We've got 269,000 of the May 35s. And the number one size position in VIX options right now, 296,000 of the April 20 calls. There you go. April 20s or May 20s? Which one do you like better, listeners? April 20, you got to get a move on pretty darn quick, I would think. Before I dive into the big VIX options action for this week, Mr. Rhodes, are you down for a little bit of Russell's weekly rundown this week, sir?
It's what I live for.
All right, then here we go. A little bit, listeners, of Russell's weekly rundown.
Now, Russell's weekly rundown. Now, Russell's weekly rundown.
So nice. You've got to do it twice. Yes, welcome to Russell's weekly rundown, where Russell holds court on the weekly VIX options action that caught his eye out there. Mr. Rhodes, sir, what caught your eye this week?
Well, first off, as I mentioned just a couple of seconds ago, this is the easiest going looking for weekly options process that I have ever gone through on this program. I was really amazed at the number of weekly options that and I don't know if SIBO breaks that out and brags on the number, but at least block trading wise, it looked like there was a lot more going on in the weeklies than I've seen probably ever. So with that, Monday, VIX at 1390. Somebody came in about 400 of the May 1st 13 calls for 225 each. They did that in a couple of lots. I wonder how I'll bet you that's looking. Why don't you guys look that one out? Because I'll bet you it's looking good right now. And then moving to Tuesday, had a whole ton of things I could have talked about on Tuesday. And I think part of the reason I have a lot I could talk about on Tuesday is it looked like people salvaged what they could with some April 3rd positions and then put on April 10th positions. Early in the day, VIX at 1518 had a buyer of 5,005. We're going to call him Mr. Nickel with that extra 5. He bought 5,005 of the April 10th, 23 calls for 11 cents. Then on the opposite side, when the market was down a little bit, somebody bought 1,200 of the May 1st, 1250 puts for 8 cents. If you told me I had to either buy those 13 calls or buy those 12.5 puts, I would be all over buying those 13 in calls, just even though they're much more expensive. One last trade on Tuesday. At the index at 1459, we had somebody buy 400 of the April 10th 18 calls for 21 cents and sell 400 of the April 10th 20 calls for 12 cents. It cost them 9 cents. The next morning, the market was a little bit higher. Wednesday morning, VIX at 1473. Somebody came in and bought 200 of the April 10th 18 calls and sold 200 of the April 10th 20 calls. Same trade. But this time they did it for 8 cents. If they liked it at 9 cents, they loved it at 8 cents. A little bit later, actually moving on to Thursday, I apologize. Thursday, VIX at that 1575. Oh my gosh, it's at high levels. Somebody came in and bought and sold 100 of the April 10th 15 calls at 94 cents and bought 100 of the April 10th 16 calls for 49 cents, hoping to pocket 35 cents. There's a risk of 65 cents if we're over 16 at settlement next Wednesday. And then also on Thursday, and this is the only April expiration other than April 10th they came across, somebody bought 500 of the April 24th 20 calls for 62 cents and sold 500 of the April 24th 25 calls for 34 cents, net cost of 28 cents. Looking for a volatility spike there. And then this morning, with the VIX at 1636, working its way higher. A buyer of 100 of the April 10th 23 calls who sold 100 of the April 10th 26 calls. They put that trade on for a nickel. There's some cheap spike protection. And finally, today as well, when VIX started working its way a bit lower, with VIX at 1565 and a sweep order, somebody bought almost 1,200 of the VIX April 10th 16 puts for $1 each. Break even at 15 on that guy. I'm usually a fan of buying puts when we're getting close to expiration. I don't like that trade. Not because I'm bullish on VIX, just I would want to go a little bit higher and not have as much time value associated with that trade. So there you go.
There you go, indeed. Let's go and see what's cooking in the mothership, the big VIX options market this week, shall we, listeners? Like we said, today, over 500,000 contracts already, 563,000 contracts on the tape. The big dog today, 75,000 of the April 14 puts. So if you like the 13 puts, you got to love the 14 puts right now, listeners. 75,000, that's a pretty big clip. I'll have to go look and see where they're printing those bad boys today. Followed by number 2, 44,000 of the April 14 half puts. Actually, those have ticked up now since we started talking. They're up to 75,000. So it looks like maybe we got a bit of a put roll or just some size put spread action out here. The 14 puts trading for 19 cents today, listeners, in blocks of about 20,000 a piece. You like those, listeners? They were 18 at 21, so going up split the uprights there. You like them better as a buy or a sell? The VIX April 14 puts. You got a little bit of time. We got a little bit of meat left on those bones. I guess if we liked the 13s at 21, we got to love the 14s at 19 cents, right? That way lies the madness out there. Maybe it might be a fun flash poll. VIX April 14 puts for 19 cents. Are you a buyer or a seller right now, listeners? Either way, 44,000. We're going up now, 75,000 total. So hot action on both those strikes. Number 3, 31,000 of the April 15 puts. 25,000 for number 4 of the April 20s. And 25,000 as well of the April 13 half puts. So a lot of action across the board out there today. Yesterday, though, whipsaw. That's going to drive some paper, and it did yesterday to the tune of nearly 1.2 million contracts on the tape yesterday. The big dog yesterday, 86,000 of the April 15 puts. So again, people are probably thinking if they like the 13s and the 14s and the 13 halves and 14 halves, you got to love the 15 puts when VIX cash is threatening a 17 handle. Almost 70,000 for number 2 of the April 16s. 68,000 for number 3 of the April 14 half puts. Number 4, 51,000 of the April 14 puts. And number 5 out there yesterday, intriguing, getting out to July now, listeners, 50,000 of the July 20s. Intriguing. Wednesday, kind of a snoozer. 334,000 contracts on the tape. I think they knew that I was traveling, so not much to really do out there. 30,000 for number 1 of the May 12 puts, followed by number 2, about 30,000 as well of the April 15 puts. Number 3, 27,000 of the May 15 puts. Number 4, 19,000 of the May 18s. And rounding out the top 5 on a pretty anemic Wednesday, 16,000 of the AUG 42 halves. Tuesday, another pretty hefty day, 882,000 contracts. This is, of course, on the heels of some of the red we saw on the screen earlier this week, listeners. 55,000 of the May 25, so getting back in a little bit of upside action. Followed by number 2, 55,000 as well of the May 18s, maybe a little bit of May 18. Looks like they bought the 18, sold the 25, so it looks like a duck, probably quacks like a duck, 55,000 times. You like that, listeners? May 1825, 7-handle wide vertical. I don't have prices here. I'll have to go look and see, but intriguing stuff. Also worth noting, 55,000 of the April 15 puts and 53,000 of the April 16 calls for number 4. So 55,000 was the number du jour back on Wednesday. Number 5 was 37,000 of the April 14 half puts. Monday, again, a bit of a snoozer, except for one print, which we'll talk about in a second here. But we've got Monday, 374,000 contracts on the tape. The big dog, 36,000 of the May 25s. I went and looked because someone hit us up while I was traveling, like 50 Cent is back, 50 Cent is back, and he's hitting these May 25s. So I went and looked, and sure enough, they put up 19,050 for 48 cents. So that is around his level. Is that where we are now? Is 25 the new 50 cent strike? Interesting. Either way, 36,000 of these going up on Monday, listeners. You like those? Is that 50 Cent? Is he back? I'll leave that up to you folks to decide. Number 2, 25,000 of the April 17s. Number 3, 23,000 of the April 22s. Number 4, 22,000 of the May 18s. And rounding out the top 5 on a pretty light Monday, 21,000 of the April 16s. Mr. Meatball, what caught your eye out there this week? And are you in line with some of our listeners who are thinking these May 25s for 48 cents is the return of our old friend 50 Cent?
That seems a little small for him. I got to be honest.
It does. The size is light, yes.
So I don't think it is. Yeah, lots of April trading today. I caught that July yesterday. There was actually a lot of volume in July on the 4th. And, that kind of caught my eye. Those calls conveniently went up before, I believe, before everything completely. Nope, we'd already blown up by then. So it was a little bit of hedging going on, but they did that trade, and I believe they did it tied to futures, so it is delta neutral. Lots and lots of July on Wednesday. There weren't any like massive block trades that went up in one. Like there's no 100,000 lots this week. I thought the May 12 puts for 6 cents were the May 12 13 put 1x3 was kind of interesting. They bought the 13 put for 23 cents 10,000 times, sold 30,000 of the 12 puts at 6 cents. So they paid a nickel for that. That was on Wednesday. So a little bet on volatility falling right before everything fell. And then, yeah, on May, on the 2nd, you had those May calls going up. But again, I don't think that's 50 Cent.
Hit me really quickly again on those strikes with the put 1x3.
Yeah, it was the 1 second. It was the May 13 12 put 1x3. So they bought the 13 puts for 23 cents, sold the 12 puts in May at 6. Net paid a nickel. Huh. And then the biggest trade for that day was that one, and then they did a big put calendar spread on an May put calendar spread on Wednesday as well. But all in all, no like crazy activity this week. And open interest is about in line with its average open interest. Today is going to be a busy day though. We'll end up doing 700, 800,000 contracts.
Mr. Rhodes, you and I have talked about doing upside trades in VIX in the past. We haven't talked about downside that often, let alone downside ratios. We don't really see that too often, 1x3 to the downside in VIX. It's not crazy far out. They're not going to September or anything. I know you wouldn't like that. What are your thoughts on that 1x3 in May in VIX? And then B, anything else catching your eye in the big VIX mothership options this week?
You know what's funny about that 1x3 is they did the same trade Tuesday and Wednesday, and when the other Mark was just talking about it, I was like, those aren't the right prices, but yeah, they did the trade on Tuesday. I think I feel like, was it also like, yeah, they did it at Tuesday, like near the close, and it was 20 cents and 6 cents. And then the next day, mid-afternoon, they did the same thing. So it's an interesting trade. I worry a bit about, that the risk reward's not all that hot, but it's, I prefer to, maybe sell slightly in the money put if I think things are going to drift lower, and just buy one out of the money put as opposed to doing something like this. I feel like there's smarter ways to go about trading that, but yeah, you never know what else they got going on. So it's probably combined with something that we don't see.
Yeah, I don't think I really love it, but it's different. It's something different that we don't get the chance to talk about that often. So worthy of note for that reason, if nothing else. You like that, listeners? We're always talking 1x2, 1x3, 1x5s to the upside. Selling one, buying 2 or 3 or 5, not the other way, usually buying one, selling 2 or 3 or 5 to the downside in VIX. Do you like doing that, listeners? I don't know. Inquiring minds want to know. Speaking of inquiring minds, we do have that flash poll up right now. If you're listening live or if you're following us on the old Twitters, April 14 puts 19 cents. Are you a buyer or a seller? Let us know. Right now, 100% of you are selling them. You're like, once bitten, twice, the hell with you. I'm not touching these things. So interesting. We'll see. That is the immediate blush. We'll see how that evolves over the rest of the show. What is evolving mostly to the downside these days is good old SVIX. Back below a 40 handle for the first time in a while, 39.10 as of the start of this segment, down a little over 3, almost 3.5 points, about 3.4 points from where it was 2 weeks ago. Not exactly lighting the world on fire in terms of options volume, only 2,400 contracts on the tape. The ADV also moving in the wrong direction. 38.65, down like 100 and change from where it was this time a couple of weeks ago. Mr. Rhodes, you were kind of our resident ex-VIX fan out here. You were saying you were bailing on it last time we talked to you. I think it was a month and change ago. That seemed to be the right play. Now, looking at it, are you waiting for it to downturn some more? Are you starting to scoop? Are you selling puts? What are you up to out there?
I sold puts and got signed a couple of weeks ago. I think I sold some 40 puts and got assigned. Again, my memory is slipping on this one. I sold 40 puts. I got assigned. I still own them. I know it's a little bit, I'm at a little bit of a loss right now, but it is something that I really like to own over the long term, at least have some exposure to over the long term, because it will continue to grind higher. I'm probably not going to add to it right now. I'd really like, I'm gloom and doom. We're going to have to change my name to Dr. Doom.
There already is a Dr. Doom, Russell.
I know. I was going to say that might be taken. I'll have to look. I'll have to check with our trademark attorney, but I'm guessing the answer will probably be a no, sir.
I could be Dr. Downer. How's that?
Dr. Downer. There we go. Our chat liked
I like it, Russell.
Our chat liked your comments earlier about global thermonuclear war. They're saying they want our next 80s trivia to be about war games now, which we can make happen. We'll see. On the Monday show.
Should we play a game?
Shall we play? I should find that. Editors, find that drop there. Shall we play a game? All right, let's keep on. Mr. I almost called you Mr. Rock Lobster. I apologize. Mr. Meatball, sir, are you back in on SVIX? Are you selling puts? You sitting on the sidelines? What are you up to?
I'm hedged in some. I've got puts in stock on a back spread in this one. I think it's gonna make a move here, and it's just a matter of how fun is that move.
It's going to make a move here. Just a question of how fun is the move. Well, when you want fun, listeners, there's only one place to turn. Forget what Jim Carroll and his ilk say about UVXY. All the fun is in UVIX, listeners. 10.25 right now, up over 1.5 points from where it was 2 weeks ago. So UVIX getting juicy. Good thing I bailed on my 9 puts expiring yesterday. That works. I don't know who lifted my offer on those, but thank you to you, nice, kind person out there, because that never looked back once the worm started turning out there yesterday. Also putting up some numbers today, 19,000 contracts on the tape. That may not sound like a lot, but for SVIX, that's a ton because the ADV's only 17,000. That's already up 1,000 from last week. The 9.5 puts expiring next week have gone up 16, almost 1,700 times today, followed by about 1,000 of the 15 calls also expiring next week. So there you go. Listen, that's what's lighting it up. By the way, our friends out there in the April 12s looking a wee bit better than they were the last time we got together here on the show, listeners. Those were looking pretty rough, I think, to put it mildly out there. They got down to, well, they bought them for 270 back on January 26th. You don't need me to tell you that hasn't been a good ride for those bad boys. Looks like they printed a few of them earlier this week for around almost 60, about 60 cents yesterday. That's what they got up to, maybe even higher. So again, still a massive loser, but much better than they were. And again, if we keep this momentum up to the upside, how funny would it be if they actually make some? I mean, they got to move hard now. I mean, these things need to get back up to nearly $3. That's probably a bit of a bridge too far, but hey, crazier things have happened. Mr. Once and Future Dr. VIX, aka Dr. Downer. What are your thoughts on UVIX these days? And are you loading up on these April 12s for 60 cents?
I am not loading up on the April 12s for 60 cents at all. Just the timing is so difficult on that thing that you just never know. You never know when you're actually going to get the blast to the upside. And one of the reasons I like the spot VIX over for getting long exposure, the spot VIX futures and the spot VIX options, is because you can buy some calls, and VIX just kind of, right now VIX just messes around in the 14-15 range. And let's say I bought some 18s or 19s that expire in May, they're going to hold their value fairly well, and I believe they're going to hold their value better than if I were to buy out of the money calls on UVXY or UVIX. So I'm not a big fan of doing that. I really do feel like for long exposure, VIX is so difficult to have long exposure to because you got so many different forces working against you. The long ETPs, like VXX, that's got another force working against you in the form of the consistent roll, negative roll yield. And then you could almost say that UVXY or we'll say UVIX, that UVIX has even more working against you because it has double the roll yield and then all the other types of issues that are associated with VIX. And again, looking at the what I consider kind of the too narrow of a premium for the May contract versus spot VIX right now, I think you'd be better served looking at May options if you think we're going to continue higher from here, as opposed to looking at buying out of the money calls on UVXY or any of the leveraged long ETPs. Now, the other side of it is if you got some insight and Iran's going to really, fire off some stuff that's going to lead to an escalation this coming weekend, knock yourself out in UVIX. But the timing needs to be like in the next day or two.
Yeah, if we get that hotly anticipated global thermonuclear war that Russell's predicting.
I think it'll be a regional conflict with low-grade nuclear weapons.
There we go. That's all you need to hit that VIX, hit those UVIX 12s, baby. Get in there while the getting is good. As we keep on rolling and go really quickly into a little bit of the old volatility voicemail.
It's time to share your thoughts and opinions with your fellow volatility traders. It's time to check the volatility voicemail. Make your voice heard by dialing 779-669-4VOL. Posting a comment on the optionsinsider.com, sending an email to questions@theoptionsinsider.com, or posting your questions to twitter.com/options. or facebook.com/theoptionsinsider.
All right, everybody, let's get to the Vol voicemail. A couple of fun things popping off. Right now, it's actually a hotly contested race in our flash poll here. 50% exactly each. Our audience exactly split on whether you want to buy or sell these puts. You know, these flash polls are legally binding for myself and maybe the Rock Lobster. If you decide we have to buy these, then we might have to buy them. I don't know if I'm going to sell them. I don't know how legally bound I will be to that, but I might throw a little 19 cents down just for you folks to have a little bit of fun. We shall see. Also, I mentioned people talking about global thermonuclear war in our chat. Yeah, I know. Dr. VIX has that effect these days. But also interesting, I forgot about this until I love our chat. They always remind me of good stuff. We got Nichols saying, what about the physically settled VIX? I think he means the options, but I know what you're getting on about here because I saw this week as well. Futures Options Week, a few others running with the CBOE eyeing physically delivered VIX options for U.S. futures trade. You know, this has been a thing people have been asking us ever since they really rolled out this whole complex. They had the futures first, then they had the options, and a lot of people thought, hey, the options are going to maybe settle into VIX futures. Kind of a wonky thing as that might be, and of course they didn't go that route. We have the cash settled instead, which is easier and simpler, I think, for most of you out there. But for a dedicated hardcore percentage of you, you want those futures in your hot little hands at the end of the day. So it seems like they are leaning that. I wish I had heard this whisper down at Boca. I would have put it to Kathy when I was talking to her about this exact kind of thing. But maybe we'll follow up down at OIC in a couple of weeks about this topic. Kind of interesting. Mr. Rhoades, as our former exchange rep out here, a man who spent his days hawking VIX to the masses. What are your thoughts? It's pretty much a rumor right now. I don't think CBOE's confirmed it.
It's a precursor to having weeklies.
You think that's where they're going?
I can just tell you from the discussions that I had back when I used to work there, and that when this topic would come up, that's the ultimate goal here, is to have Friday settled VIX options that are based on the futures, and maybe even working our way toward dailies. That, you know, dailies weren't a thing when I worked there, so that's an assumption on my part. But, you know, I'll bet that this is what's going on, is that they are most definitely putting those up. And if it makes sense, because you can't do a daily or a weekly VIX option that would be cash settled. You've really got to do it. You've got to correspond it with some sort of physical settlement in the future, because they're priced off of the future. And I think if you tried to do it cash settled based on the index, nobody would really be able to hedge themselves, you know, as far as the liquidity providers go. But when this has come up in the past about could we do Friday expirations in VIX, it's always been, if we do them, we have to do them as options on futures. So that would be my guess.
No, it's funny because the rest of the industry is moving exactly the opposite way. They want to get zero-day NVIDIA and Tesla, so they need cash-settled options to do that. And here we are, VIX going completely the other way, saying we need the physically settled. But you're right, it does make a certain amount of sense. Does that excite you, the prospect of this, Mr. Rhoades?
Oh, I would love that. I would love to, because, you know, I've done such a great job over the years on the volatility on the crystal ball, where we're always picking where VIX is going to be on Fridays. I think I think I could quit teaching and everything else and just trade the VIX weekly.
Your long-term average in the crystal ball might be the best of them all.
Yeah, it's a special man that can make fun of himself like that, huh?
Hey, I miss it all the time on this show, so I mock myself around.
I was like the Washington Wizards or the Washington Generals.
The Generals, yes, you were pretty impressive. Yeah. Mr. Meatball, same question for you. Does the prospect of a physically settled VIX option excite you, sir?
No. I like the idea that they would expire on Friday.
Yeah.
But what do I need a VIX future for? No thanks.
I love it. Tell us how you really feel, sir, out there. I don't know. Might be a fun question of the week for maybe next week. Does that entice you? It might be a little bit too in the weeds for most of our audience, but I know for a hardcore few out there, it certainly is intriguing. Certainly Nichols wants to know about it. No, says the Meatball. He wants nothing to do with the VIX futures as we keep on rolling. And we go a little bit of the old crystal ball.
It's time to peer into the future and reveal what the volatility gods hold in store. It's time to look into the crystal ball.
I got so excited, I got ahead of myself. I forgot to pay off our questions of the week from last week and this week. Last week, we asked you, which market segment are you the most excited about for the rest of the year? Equities, crypto, volatility, or other. A lot of write-ins for fixed income, but vol took it. 43.3% of you, so nearly half of you excited about vol. I got to imagine most of you are playing to the upside. Maybe you're doing still some of the erosion play, getting a little bit more challenging, a little bit better this week maybe if this is a little bit of the old reset for you. But still, nearly half of you excited about vol for the rest of the year. That's kind of interesting. Crypto number 2, 30%. Equities, a distant third. Only 20% of you excited about the prospects for equities. This week, we're asking you quite simply, how are you approaching your broad equity allocations, particularly SPX? Are you going to straight long, ride or die? Are you long but maybe hedged a little bit of put in your back pocket? Are you long call or maybe going the stock substitution route? Or are you just completely out? You're sitting in cash. And right now, 36.7% of you are completely out. You're sitting in cash. You don't trust this market worth a damn. 31.7% saying you're long, but hedged with the put. You got a little bit of a put in your back pocket for a rainy day. Hard to fault you on that one. 25% going the two-saw route. Straight ride or die, baby. All the way up. And only 6.7% of you right now going for the old long call or stock substitution. I thought it might get a little bit more love, but apparently not out there. Let's see if we're getting any love, though, listeners, in our crystal ball. Remember, we had a bit of a weird one. We picked on the show last time. It was myself, the Rock Lobster, and Jim Carroll. But we picked for last week in our infinite wisdom, forgetting that it was a market holiday. We all had 12 handles. That didn't really work out too well, as I recall. If you listen to our vol kind of short clip show from last week, I paid off the crystal ball for last week. And spoiler alert, there were no winners. The only person who guessed for this week was our buddy, Mr. Uncle Mike, who came in on one of our other shows. He guessed a 12 half for today. And spoiler alert, no winner chicken dinner for him. Nobody had a 15 handle, listeners, which is where we're hanging up. Nearly 15 3/4 in VIX cash right now. So we'll go around the horn. We'll let our guests go first. Mr. Once and Future Dr. VIX, you want to keep your upside streak alive, sir? What are you feeling for VIX this time next week?
We get CPI and PPI next week, and I keep thinking that an economic number might make people a little bit more concerned about the overall markets. If we continue to see strong employment, whenever we've seen, and this goes back 100 years or so, but whenever we have seen inflation, and then we get a bunch of see a nice increase in everybody's salaries, we get another bout of inflation. And I keep waiting for an upside surprise in CPI. Based on that, I'm going to go with 1776.
Wow, an excellent year.
The year our country was born.
An excellent year.
Yes.
Is it an excellent vol number? I guess we'll find out next week. But Russell, why would the market react crazily on a day with economic data? I don't know what you're talking about.
I have no clue.
Why would vol pop on said day? Even if the numbers are, let's say, white hot, why would that happen?
Who knows? I think the catalyst is going to be something that we never saw coming.
Here we go, Dr. Doom out here. And Mr. Rhodes, if folks want to check out what you have cooking in the land of vol, where should they go? What should they do?
Follow me on Twitter. That's the best place. It's my full name, Russell Rhodes. I'm not as active as I used to be, but I think I might start picking that up a bit more. And if you follow the Options Insider, they've linked me about 5 times to things as the program's been going along today. So that's the easiest way to find where I'm at.
You can find them. We do link them. By the way, I undersold vol. I said as we were, I had my old quote up there, right? Well, 16 and a half, almost 1660 out there right now. So yeah, vol looking frothy, looking juicy out here. It looks like the sell-off mitigating, or I should say the rally mitigating a little bit. We're still up, listeners, but coming back down a little bit off the highs as we're ending the show. S&P up about 0.8%. We'll see. Is this just the worm turning again, or are we just taking a pause? Mr. Meatball, sir, you have a lot of choices now. We're moving up a little bit in the world. You have a lot more palindromic nonsense. What's floating your boat this week?
I am going to guess. I'm going to go with the Russell Rhodes theory that you should guess the current level. And so the current VIX is 1665. So I'm going to go 1661. That is going to be my guess.
I had it written before you even said it, sir. It's nice to have you out of the 12s. you get a little bit more palindromic nonsense.
I know. I've got a lot more room to. I could do 1551. I could do 1771.
Why don't you do Why don't you do 1666 for the Great Fire of London?
That wouldn't be palindromic.
And now we're gonna stick the host with, you know, I don't know, when did we have the Chicago fire? But let's you know,
that was what.
Let's do historical. You do 1492, Mark Longo, and we're gonna be good.
Was that 18? I want to say, was it 1880s in that time frame? I think something like that.
Wasn't it like 1879? When was the Great Chicago?
Now you're gonna make me look it up, listeners. But
I'm looking now.
While we're doing that, yeah, I got tired of your 1221. As fun as it was, Mr. Meatball. So nice for you to have. Nice to
1871.
1871. All right, so I was almost a decade off. There you go. I was close, listeners. Close, but no cigar. You think I would know? Our studio is just a few blocks away from where it started, Miss O'Leary's barn, which is now a firehouse, appropriately enough. Mr. Meatball, where should folks go if they want more Chicago Fire goodness in their lives?
Yeah, head out to optionpit.com. I'm posting stuff almost every day, and follow me on Twitter at optionpit.
All right, I bought myself some time, listeners. This is, again, a rough one. Is this vol going... This is always the question, right? Is the vol going to persist? Are they going to give up the ghost? I was leaning back closer to where we were earlier. I was leaning 15 3/4. I'm tempted to bump it up a little bit, but you know, I think I might. I might bump it up to 15.95. All right, there's your market for this week, listeners. Mr. Rhodes feeling a nationalistic 17.76. Mr. Meatball coming in the middle. How nice is it not to have a 12.21 for the Meatball? A 16.61 instead. And myself at the Goldilocks, a.k.a. the right prediction, 15.95. Looking at our chat, we got 16 halves coming in, 17.30s, 18 handles coming in. Wow, 17.20s. You folks are feeling some juice. Get your predictions in. If you're listening on the live side, you can do that right away, of course. If you're listening after the fact, then, of course, get your predictions in by the end of the day today. And you, too, if you're within our 10th of a point margin of victory, you, too, can win fabulous prizes. If you're one of our many on-demand listeners on the podcast side, that will conclude your broadcast week with us this week. I want to thank you for joining us throughout this week. I had a lot of fun stuff hitting the network, even though I was traveling for a good chunk of it. See, even when the cat is away, you listeners get to play at the end of the day. If you want to keep playing, head on over to theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go. Let me congratulate again. What was the name of our Kyle Asplin? Congratulations to you, sir, for winning our March Pro Trading Crate. If you want to get your name in the hat for April and everything else we have, including options oddities coming up, the Rock Lobster messaging me during the show, telling me he's getting a Tesla backup battery, so he's going to be good to go for the show coming up in an hour. Will he? I guess we'll find out. Theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go to get access to that and everything else we've done for years on that feed now. 300 plus episodes coming at you the second you hit that button. And then, of course, Monday, we're coming back at you with a little bit of the option block. Will our trivia be War Games themed? Who knows? Got to tune in to find out. All the way through to next Friday, another episode of Volatility Views. Stay safe out there, everybody.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions@theoptionsinsider.com.